Hi friends, hope you are doing well. I am Dr. Ganguly. Welcome to my channel. So today I am going to talk about how to get admission into MS programs or master's programs in the US, especially if you have a GPA which is on the lower side. And very often you may be coming from an engineering college or a college which is not very well known. So this is the situation faced by a very large number of students, and let's look at some of the tactics you can use to increase your chances for admission and even for getting scholarship in some cases. So though you may not get a scholarship immediately when you apply, you may be able to get a scholarship maybe after the first semester or so if you follow some of these tactics. So let's begin. Now I'm going to divide this discussion into 6 points which are going to be useful for you. So let's start with number 1. So the number one thing which people look at in the admission committee is your BS college. And of course you can divide it into 2 parts. Your college may be very well known, or your college may not be known or ranked college. Now let's say your college is very well known. It's something which the academics are familiar with, and this is often the case if they have seen students previously coming from this college or university to their institution, or maybe when they were in graduate school they knew some people who came from these institutions. So again, in this case they are going to check out your GPA very carefully. They are going to ask some of their friends or colleagues from that particular country or that particular university about your GPA and so on. So in some cases this can be good, in some cases this can be bad, because very often people who come from good colleges also tend to have low GPA, because unfortunately the professors in these colleges are more draconian. Now the second case which I have seen is that people apply from universities which are not ranked or whose names are not known. And again, people are going to of course look at their GPA, and people are going to be looking at their universities, and they may not know where these universities are. So in that case they are going to turn to point number 2, and point number 2 is going to be the test scores. Now even before we start looking at the test score, let's look at the kind of GPA which is considered good and weak. So I would say any GPA from 3 to 4 is generally considered a good GPA for admission, 4 being the case of a student who has got all A grades, and something like 3.5 is a very appropriate GPA if you want to get admission into MS programs. Now if your GPA is in the range 2 to 3, you need to buttress it up. Again, keep in mind that if your core courses have a higher GPA, do make it a point to list this in your motivational letter, which I will come back to later. Now again, if your GPA is in the range 1 to 2, it's going to be somewhat difficult to get admission into the master's program. So that's something to keep in mind, and in case you have excellent scores in tests, it may become possible. And one of the strategies of course is to apply into a stream which is not directly related to your BS degree. So for example, if you did a BS degree in mechanical engineering and your GPA is low, maybe you can try to apply to a department such as information systems in your master's level program, to a different department, for example management department or something like that. So your knowledge of mechanical engineering will not be so much required in this department, but the fact that you have some basic background in math and computing will always be useful. So these kind of delta changes always help to buttress your case, because if you apply to a mechanical engineering master's program, the professors will think that your basic fundamentals are not too good, but if you apply to a different program, for example data science, they are not going to be so concerned about the fact that you got a C grade in machine design or mechanics of material or heat transfer, because you're not going to use those disciplines anymore. You're only going to focus on matrix theory and some of these other disciplines. So that's something which is very important. So let's now come to the issue about test scores, and like I mentioned in many of my videos before, the most important test for MS is the GRE, or the graduate record examination. Now there is a tendency by many schools to say that GRE is optional, But I'm going to tell you that if you are somebody who has a lower GPA or who is coming from an unranked university or an unknown university, giving GRE puts you at par with the rest of the people in the world. So essentially, for example, if we are to compare a candidate from Harvard University with a candidate from an unknown university, and these guys both have the same GRE score, the faculty are going to be very impressed by the GRE score of the guy from the unknown university, especially if he has a low GPA. So GRE is a great equalizer as far as unranked university and low GPA students are concerned. Now, beside GRE, you may be asked to give some English language test, for example, TOEFL or IELTS. And in any such case, doing well in these courses is very useful because it does show that you are essentially a good student. Now, in some cases, if you want to further buttress your situation, you can give some GRE subject tests. For example, there are subject tests in math, physics, and psychology. So, if you are somebody who is trying to buttress his case for an application, maybe to a computer science, data science, or engineering type of department, you can give the math GRE. And if you are applying in physics, you may give the physics GRE or the psychology GRE if you are applying for that department. So the advantage here is that if your GPA is low, but your subject test scores are very good in math or physics or both, then the people are going to certainly feel that it was your professors who were draconian and at fault rather than you. You are somebody who knows all the basics, and so you are going to do well in your graduate study class. Now, do remember that people look at good GPA not as a end in itself, but because they think that people who have good GPA in their bachelor's degree will also do well in the master's program. So that's something to keep in mind. Finally, if you are applying for the STEM disciplines, that is science, technology, engineering, and math, make sure that your GRE quantitative scores are good. So most of the time people are going to excuse a lower verbal score, so you don't need to bother too much about that because it's hard to improve your verbal score suddenly, but do put in a lot of effort in improving your quantitative GRE score, because that basic mathematics which you need for quantitative GRE is going to be very much the prerequisite for any science and technology type of degree. Now let's look at the next issue, and that is the personal statement which you need to write, or sometimes known as the statement of purpose. Now this is a very important document because this is where the admission committee actually sees you as a person, as a human being, and so make sure that you give your motivation very well. You should show that you have considerable motivation for doing the master's degree, of using it to solve some important problems facing mankind, and that you also have a desire to do research in the long run. These are things which professors typically like of a student because they do like to feel that the work they are doing is something which is positive for society. So they always like to take students who have an agenda which will expand further on whatever they have learned. So it's very important to show ambition in your statement of purpose. This is something which is very well appreciated in the US, because the general philosophy is that if you are ambitious when you are young, that's a good thing. That means you will have the motivation to go far, and the professors will not actually need to try to motivate you because they do not probably have time for that. Finally, we come to letters of recommendation, and in any low GPA case, the letters of recommendation become very important. Try to get letters of recommendation not just from your own professors, but also from somewhere else. So try to do some internships here and there, maybe go to some good university and do an internship. I have put some videos on my channel about the DAD RISE internship, about the CERN internship, and so on. And there are many internships available in universities throughout the world, particularly in European universities, where you can spend your summer vacations and do some good work. So any of those references are going to greatly buttress any case. So in fact, I had a student who did a summer internship at Harvard University, and then he was able to quickly get admission and full scholarship at the University of Florida. So these are some things which become very important. Now let us look at the extras, and these extras are going to add substantial value to your application if you have them. So try to get them while you are a bachelor's degree student. Number one is a paper or so. Now in some cases, if you are doing work during your summer intern with some research professor, or in your final year, you are working on a project with a professor, you may be able to write a paper, and this may be just a conference paper at a local conference or seminar, but this is certainly something which is going to buttress your case, because professors always like to see people who have written papers, and so they are going to give importance to this. Now, you can of course try to apply to some nearby universities. Many professors are willing to take students during summer and put them as part of a research project with a PhD student, and in that case what can happen is that you get a paper with that PhD student and the professor concerned. Now, the second thing is prizes, and any awards, prizes you have got, any fellowships you have got, any scholarships you have got, certainly strengthen your CV, because people feel that you have a lot of motivation, you have some capability, you are in the top of your class. So even if you do not have a high GPA, any possibility of getting a prize, say in a math competition or in some competition where you made some drones and flew them, or maybe you developed a solar car, or maybe you took part in some non-profit work, all these are useful to show. So do not leave any opportunities to buttress your resume through these things. Finally, I mentioned before about internships. Internships play a huge role, especially if you are not at a very well-known university. Go to some well-known university and do an intern. For example, look at the DAD RISE intern, or look at the CERN intern, or you can even write to many professors in European universities and they will let you do an internship there. You can also try to get internships at good companies wherever you are staying. So any kind of company intern boosts your case if you are applying for a STEM major, because once you have been in a company for a few months, you do know what are some of the important requirements from company perspective, and that's going to help you down the road. Certainly, if you can get any internship in top companies such as Google, Intel, Meta, Microsoft, NASA, ISRO, and so on, that's going to further strengthen your case. So these were some ideas I had about how to buttress a resume or application from a student who is having not such a good GPA and maybe coming from an unranked university or a generic engineering college. And certainly these are going to help you, because this is a very big decision in life. It's going to entail a lot of expenses, and you want this decision to go well, because if you get admission into the MS program, that could be your passport to a very good high paying job, and it could propel you to academic stardom also. So I'll end this video here, and I will see you in a video sometime soon. See you then.